So any long-term subscribers to the channel will remember the very first videos that I did were actually wishlist videos for FIFA. That was all the way back for FIFA 19, back when we were on FIFA 18. And today, we're moving on from FIFA 22 to FIFA 23. So with that in mind, I thought we'd finally begin the build-up for FIFA 23 by doing a wishlist series, going back to those roots. And I want to start off with a gameplay wishlist. I'm Ash, you'll know me as Brom18, and today we are going through part 1 of that gameplay wishlist. So just a quick heads up, with the gameplay wishlist, what I'm actually talking about today is physically when you are playing in a game on FIFA. In terms of game mode, such as career mode, etc., or player career mode, pro clubs, we'll be doing separate wish lists for that. We'll also be doing a separate tactics, custom tactics wish list as well. So keep an eye out for them. Today we're going to be talking purely about the actual gameplay. For those of you who haven't done so already, a quick notice before we get into it, go and check out my Patreon. The link to that is down below. Great way to support the channel, and you can get access to a range of fantastic perks like my scouting package with real scout reports on players, exclusive tactics videos that can only be seen on Patreon, behind the scenes videos, early access, all that good stuff. Check out the links down below. And on that note, let's get into the wish list. So then, first things first, I've decided that I'm going to split this into different parts just because of the actual length of the videos. And what we're going to do in this first part is we're going to focus on possession and attacking. So first off, we're going to start off with possession. Let's see what we can sort of talk about first. So overall, with the gameplay on FIFA, yes, I think there's a lot that needs to be improved. You guys will know I've been fairly critical of it, particularly over the years. Not to say it's absolutely horrendous for sure, because, then I wouldn't play it, but there are a lot of improvements that are needed, particularly to offline gameplay as well. So let's go through it first. Let's talk about possession. How can things be changed when you are sort of in possession of the ball, you're generally having some sort of passing movements? Well, first things first, I want to talk about kickoff, and how when you do kick off, there's not much movement. In fact, there's no movement at all. This needs to change for me. When you kick off, the opposition team should be pushing up. When the opposition team kick off, your team should be pushing up, and vice versa. When you do kick off, it's just very stagnant. A lot of players standing about. In real life, what you'll notice is it will go back to maybe the centre back, a left back, or a right back, and then because the opposition have pushed their block up, all of a sudden they're pressured. And then they often have to go longer. They've got to try and play out from the back. That's what I'm looking for here. Often from kickoff, it's really just stagnant. A lot of people, as I say, standing around, and it's just not very good. It tends to mean that if you want to push up immediately, you can't, because a lot of people are, again, just ball watching. And this kind of plays into the unit as a whole, your team units. They don't push up and retreat as a unit much. There's a lot of standing about. That needs to change. We'll talk about more of that when we come into the defending in the next wishlist part. But again, there needs to be more movement as a unit, individually as well, and that plays into that whole bigger picture. On top of that, I want to talk about ball control and how it's still very easy for players. There's a lot of missed touches, misplaced touches, miscontrol of the ball. The first touches are often very good. Rarely is there players being seen miscontrolling the ball, even in the most unrealistic situations. And that, for me, to improve the realism aspect of that, there needs to be more. It's very easy, particularly if you're playing online. Now, if you're playing offline, it's a slightly different story. It's more tailored to how you're playing. But if you're playing against someone online, it becomes very easy to exploit, because they can do a lot of unrealistic things, and they know they're going to be able to bring the ball down. So for me, I want the sort of ability for a player to control the ball to be reduced, and kind of add a little bit of error into that. Even in the sliders, any of you who use my gameplay sliders will see I've pushed the first touch error all the way up to 100. Still doesn't have a massive effect. So again, we need to see some changes there as well. Third of all, I want to talk about the pass power. It's very easy to underhit a pass, but very hard to overhit one, which is a little bit strange. Now, obviously, there is an element of how much power are you putting into it in terms of when you're holding down the pass button. But I found even when I'm holding down the pass button for a long time and I'm building up the power bar, it's still quite slow, the passing, even when I've used the regular gameplay as opposed to my custom sliders where the pass speed has been decreased. It's very easy to underhit. but very hard to overhit. And, you know, I just think some fine-tuning needs to be done to that, a little bit of tweaks here and there to make it easier for a player to be able to overhit passes. We see that very, very regularly, very often in football. So I think that's just a way of trying to replicate that as much as possible. Fourth on the list, I have to talk about skill moves. Now, this isn't going to happen. I really don't think this is ever going to happen, but it's something that I feel very, very strongly about, which is why I've included it on this list. Skill moves. I mean, I don't play online at all, so thankfully I don't have to deal with it much. But anyone who does play online, though, I know this is frustrating. Please, please, please make it harder to execute these advanced skill moves. Remove some of them. I know it's not going to happen, but this is what I want to see. Remove some of them that are absolutely ridiculous. You just don't see, like rainbow flicks. They're so easy to execute. I'm pretty sure you don't even have to have 5-star skill moves. I've got a feeling it might be 4, which is absolutely ridiculous. When do you ever see someone rainbow flick? I've probably seen a player do it once, ever, and that was Neymar in the Brazilian league. So, you know, for me, reduce the amount of skill moves in the game. Make it more challenging to be able to execute them. Or if not, reduce the amount of players who have 4 and 5-star skill moves and make it so there is a very niche amount of players who can perform those skill moves, because that is how it works. You know, there shouldn't be that so many of these players who have 5 and 4-star skill moves if they can produce those sort of moves. So as a result, let's make some changes to that, please. Fifth on the list is the most important one. Everything is too fast. Everything. Absolutely everything. You know, the game is just becomes too end-to-endy. Again, arcadey. As a result, for me, the speed of everything, passing, movement, shooting, it needs to be turned down. It needs to be toned. You know, with this kind of hyper motion that they, you know, really built on and kind of pushed out to us last year, where they'll be able to scan every single player on a pitch to make it more realistic in a game situation. I've not really seen that in play. Now, we've only had 1 year of that, so hopefully this second year we see that more in action. It's starting to get a little bit slower as of this year, but not much, only kind of incrementally. So as a result, let's really tone that down, because it really does need it, you know. And if people want to play on a faster thing, they can change the game speed if they want to go on fast, but on normal, it should not still be too fast to enjoy. And even on slow, it's still too fast. So as a result, I want to see everything toned down in that area as well. Sixth on the list is talking about players' positioning, particularly when you've got kind of a sort of general possession. Players just don't really pick up those intelligent positions. They don't drop into pockets. They don't take the advanced areas enough. They're very, very happy to kind of stand behind someone else, which we'll talk about a bit more in the attacking sense as well, and, you know, not really move. And so as a result, it makes it very, very stagnant. Often when you've got kind of, you know, a spell of possession, it makes it very hard to build up in a possession manner, and then becomes more reliant on the counter-attack, which is another issue overall with the game, is that it's just so reliant on the counter-attack. Again, we'll allude to that a little bit later as well. And as a result, things just stagnate. We need players just dropping into pockets more. Yes, attributes like positioning will be vision as well, will have an influence on that. I completely expect and agree with that. But we need to see that more as well. And finally, with the possession section, 7th as all, I'm looking for more horizontal movement from players. So this is building on from the last point where they don't drop into pockets of space enough. When you talk about how central midfielders, attacking midfielders, again, they're kind of standing behind the opposition player, not showing for the ball. Just drift from side to side. You know, show for the ball. Get yourself into a position. The movement is too vertical. They'll only ever really kind of look to run in behind it on occasion. But they'll never look to go from side to side and pick up those areas where you can get the ball to them and try and hurt the opposition possession-wise. So as a result, I'm looking for them to show more horizontal and lateral movement as well. Right then, we've talked about possession. Let me talk to you about attacking. What would I like to see in the attacking sense that can be improved in FIFA? Well, first things first, again talking about what we spoke about from kickoff. Players are too stagnant and too passive, but this time it's in crossing situations. How many times do you get the ball to a winger out wide, you're looking for a cross, and players, you know, your striker, your target man, just standing around What we need here, they should be bursting into the box. They should use their body to shrug off defenders. They should be attacking the ball, being aggressive, really trying to get to that ball. You know, ultimately, crossing has been fixed in FIFA. You know, it is a little bit better, although still needs some tweaks to it. But now it's the recipients. The recipients are just too passive. And so as a result, again, it's harder to kind of attack those crossing situations. So we need them to be more aggressive, more insistent on trying to burst to the ball and attack the cross. Second of all, I want a whipped shot function, particularly when you're outside the box. How often do you see it when players outside the box, rather than using their laces to shoot, they're using the side of their foot? And the reason why is partly for accuracy and also to apply whip. So maybe they can get it, curve it round, go towards the far corner, for example. Now, finesse shots are how you do this, but obviously with a finesse shot, it cancels out how much power you can get and becomes very soft. And so as a result, when you're doing RB and B or R1 and circle to produce that finesse shot from outside the box, they don't carry enough power. So as a result, I believe when you're outside the box, it should change to more of a whipped shot function, where you can apply that kind of whip shot. You've got more power, less accuracy than a finesse shot, but more accuracy than just a laced shot. And then as a result, you can try and aim for that far corner as well. Third on the list is one-on-ones. When a player is going through on goal against a goalkeeper, those situations need to be reworked. In particular, what I'm looking at is, particularly when you're playing online, it's more accurate for you to put your laces through it rather than use the side of your foot, a finesse shot. You know, how many times when you see a player going one-on-one and they open their body up, they don't use their laces, they side foot it, because that's how you get accuracy, that's how you get control over the shot. But on FIFA, when you're doing finesse shots, it's so much more harder, so much more difficult to score compared to if it's with a lace shot. So as a result, you know, people are just putting their foot through it and it's been more accurate. This needs changing for me. You know, you need to loosen the accuracy of lace shots and improve the accuracy of finesse shots. Because otherwise, again, it's just very, very unrealistic. It doesn't look aesthetically pleasing. And it's also just quite frustrating as well when I'm trying to play in a realistic sense. I'm finesse shotting it when I'm through on goal, and it's less accurate than if I was just to put my laces through it. So that's somewhere I'd like to see reworked as well. On top of that, I want to talk about headers. We alluded to it earlier with how players approach headers in terms of not attacking the cross, but how do they actually kind of execute those headers? Well, often what you find is they just try and get to it and let it bounce off them. What I'm looking for here is more control. They should be trying to get more control. Now, obviously, headers are hard, particularly attacking headers when you're trying to score. They're hard, completely get that. Doesn't always happen. But the player should be trying to get that control. And what they should be doing in order to get this is get their head over the ball and aim downwards. Instead, what they do is they're often just kind of attacking it where the head goes under the ball. They've got no control over it. And as a result, it's just ballooning everywhere. What you're looking for is for them, as I say, get their head over the ball, aim downwards, and then try and, you know, head it across goal in a lot of situations as well. Now, that's obviously dependent on the direction that you apply to it. But again, more control in headed situations. Fifth on the list is, again, what we alluded to earlier. The game is still too reliant on counter-attacking, and it's boring. It's what makes it very end-to-endy and arcadey. And it kind of devalues possession because you don't really need it. And even when you try to, you know, for me, I create a lot of tactics that are possession orientated. Even then, despite that, many of my goals are still coming from the counter attack, which, you know, it's just very boring, not necessarily realistic as well. That's the sort of approach that I want to take to it. So, you know, I think that needs to be reworked. There's a lot of changes, some of which I've suggested here already, that would help make it less counter-attacking orientated. There are other changes as well, which we'll talk about in the future parts in terms of defending and stuff like that, and how we can kind of change it and make it less end-to-endy. So that will round it off for this part then. If you have enjoyed it, please do leave a like, subscribe to the channel and ring the bell so you get more notifications every time I upload. In the next part, we'll be talking about the likes of defending. We'll probably talk about things like set pieces as well. And there's a whole range of stuff to get into. Goalkeeping is another one. Audio and visual improvements of the gameplay. There's a whole host of things. So please do come back and check out part 2 of our FIFA 23 gameplay wish list. on that note, we're going to round it off there. Don't forget to check out my Patreon. The link to that is down below, as is the link to my Twitter. And check out any of the other great content on the channel as well. Until next time, I've been Brom18, and I will see you soon.